Hello and welcome to the Sonic Cinema podcast. My name is Brian Scuttle. Thank you for joining me at www.sonic-cinema.com. You can also listen to the podcast on Spotify, Apple's Podcasts, and Google Podcasts. Today, I am joined by a fellow film critic that I got to know on Twitter, and he has his own podcast and his own website. Colby told me, and I'm pleased to be joined today by Colby Mack. Thank you very much for joining me.
Yo, 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 what up? It's your boy Colby Mack, and thank you for having me, Ryan.
What? The first question is probably I was kind of curious. What got you into what was it that first got you interested in movies?
Man, probably all the movies I wasn't supposed to watch that were available when I was a kid. I feel like I lived in a household that had access to like a lot of different stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And my dad and my stepdad, they were in the movies. So whoever house I was at, there was always VHS tapes around. And they watched it all. Westerns, sci-fi, action, dirty movies. So probably like around the age of like 4. It's like the earliest memory I can recall of being in front of a TV and just completely like enthralled watching Harlem Nights with Eddie Murphy and with Richard Pryor and everybody. I'm like, I've got no business watching this, but I've watched it over 100 times easily.
Nice. What eventually inspired you to decide to write about movies and talking about movies yourself?
Not being able to get work in movies. Nah, I mean, I've been in the entertainment industry for a very long time. I was doing spec work, commercial work as a kid in New York, and a lot of theater and stuff like that. So I've always had a heart for performance. So acting was the most natural thing that I can be able to do, and I did the actor thing. I'm still technically doing the actor thing. Moved out to LA, spent a few years out there. And no matter what, my love for movies was always around. So if I'm not talking about movies with friends or family members, then somebody's got a value and opinion. So I said, you know what? Let me, let's see where this can go. I don't know if there needs to be like certain credentials to be a critic, but I figured, all right, you know what? I'll let my thoughts out. And I would do it sporadically, but I said, you know what? I found this nice little, catchy little phrase Colby told me. I was like, I'm gonna make this bitch stick. So in November of 2018, I said, all right, I'm gonna put out my first hashtag Colby told me. So when they ask you where you heard it from, hey, Colby told you. And it's been sticking ever since. It's been a nice journey.
Nice. What are some of the films that had the biggest impact on you growing up?
Oh man, because of where I grew up in South Florida, in the late '80s, early '90s, obviously action was like the biggest thing that I can remember to take away, and action and then comedies. Like I mentioned earlier, the earliest film that I remember is Harlem Nights, and watching it over 100 times. So Eddie Murphy was a hero for me. So I watched everything Eddie Murphy. I said, I want to watch that guy with the mustache, right? So Eddie Murphy's such a big influence. All of his films, The Golden Child, 48 Hours, Beverly Hills Cop. My all-time favorite movie is Coming to America. It's a masterpiece, in my opinion. One of the greatest comedies, ever. And from there, I just kind of, every movie that I would watch with him, I would find more and more, artists to just fall in love with, like with Tommy Davidson and with, the Wayans family, and like with Keenan Ivory Wayans, and watching him inside of like a Low Down Dirty Shame. And then it just kept kind of sprawling and creating like this spider web. Yeah. Like I'd watch a movie and then find somebody new, and then I want to watch their movie and their movie. So I watched so much. But I mean, those big action movies of the 90s, you can't go wrong with them and stuff like that. All the ones that you're supposed to watch, for the most part, I've watched. I've definitely got some blind spots that I'm trying to fix.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I definitely identify with you saying, one film sort of leads you to another. You see somebody in that, or you become familiar with a filmmaker that leads you to another film, leads you to another film. It basically just spirals from there. that was definitely part of my process when it came to getting into movies and really starting to watch movies on a more critical level and watching more movies on a
Hmm.
critical level.
Yeah.
And
And there's definitely like a difference between that. Like, I've been a movie fan since I was 4 years old,
yeah,
but I've been a film critic probably for like the past, 2 to 4 years, in which, I mean, granted, I was able to have conversations where I could always separate like my pure enjoyment of a film as like a spectator, as opposed to like when you're a film critic, you play an active role into this film's success. And I believe that wholeheartedly, right?
mm,
Like if you identify yourself as a critic, you are using your platform, some people, their prestige, to influence people with your words on the reception of a film has with you.
hmm
And I think that that is a different role that you assume as opposed to just like being a spectator, right? I personally think that I can have a good balance of being able to do both. Some folks, not so much. Some folks have been a critic for so long where they cannot turn on that pure spectator
yeah,
like thing. And it sucks. I mean, it's their right to do it that way.
hmm
I just feel like that kind of wipes away the love that you got into this war.
yeah. And it was funny because I've been interested about writing about films for going on 20 plus years, and I started to have I once I started to really hone in on that critical eye of mine. It did get to a point like kind of early on where it's like, am I really able to enjoy a movie anymore? And then it was funny. It was Con Air actually
Oh, wow.
that I watched him. Like, okay, I can still enjoy movies. I can
Hmm.
still enjoy just watching a movie for entertainment value. And yes, there are things about it that now I look on and it's like, oh, that's pretty cringeworthy. But the fact of the matter is that enjoyment just doesn't really go away. And so it's, yeah, trying to figure out that balance between just enjoying a movie and being able to appreciate the critical aspects of it in addition to the entertainment value. I mean, that is something that I think it's it's tough. There is a process that comes to that.
Yeah, it's and I don't think that there's a right way for everyone. I think everyone has to find what's that
Yeah.
right way for them. But as long personally for me, as long as they identify that that is a journey that they have to be on, I think that's what brings about an honest interpretation of how a film can affect people, right?
Mm,
Especially if you, as a film critic, are disseminating your opinion to fans of you, people that were like respect you, right? And I
hmm
think that's for folks out there that are listening, don't we didn't get to this and be like, I'm gonna be a super famous film critic and make millions of dollars. Because that's not it.
Yeah.
It's a passion and a love
mm,
that is essentially a really cool hobby, in my opinion.
yeah. Who are some of when you started to write about films? Are there any particular writers that you look to for inspiration?
Man, not particularly, because honestly, and this is something that I'm still trying to reconcile with myself, right? I would say that I'm a gifted writer. And I've had a gift for writing at an early age. I was able to like see the benefits of that in high school and college, doing writing competitions and stuff. And obviously I write screenplays. But I I was gonna cuss, forgive me.
Oh, that's fine if you do.
Great. I fucking hate reading. I am not a big reader. Not that I can't. Like I'm actually
Yeah.
a really, really dope. Keep in mind, I used to be paid to be a reader, for a production company, right?
hmm
I just like I haven't read like a novel or like I haven't read a non screenplay since like the 10th grade of high school. Like I don't enjoy it. Like my mind works on that plane where if you're going to tell me a story, you can tell it to me visually, right?
hmm
So I don't have the patience for it. Like it's whatever, right? I get completely sucked out, and I've tried. I really really have, and I'm pretty sure there's some great texts and some great authors. So I was never typically attracted to reading a film review. One, I wanted to be able to know for myself. There's some
hmm
people that
Yeah.
like to be able to do both. There were outlets that I paid attention to, and I feel like I do better getting a general sense about a film and its performance and its reception, as opposed to saying, hey, let me go to rogerebert.com and check out this specific film critic. I mean, now that I've been doing it, there's critics that I respect who are in my circles that like, I want to make sure to get their opinion. But most of the time, I'm really only digesting what they write after I've already formulated my own opinion, you know? So I've got some favorites, you know, you know, Clayton Davis over at, you know, Awards Watch, and, you know, Matt Neglia from Next Best Picture, you know, my guys over at In Session Film, Feeling Film, you know, everybody who pretty much I pod with, you know, those are the voices I respect. And typically give me your podcast because it's going to be essentially what you're talking about there. And I'm battling now because like the first full year that I was writing in like 2019, like really committing like full length reviews, I was writing everything and I quickly burned myself out. So like I haven't touched my site in like 6 months, but I also understand that to play this game in this industry, the writing part still matters. As great as this voice is, the writing part still very much matters to a lot of folks, you know, at PR firms, with the studios and stuff like that. So I got to get back to it because I think also it's good to be able to see different forms of writing and how it can be able to help enhance your writing, right? I got to get to it. If you have any recommendations of folks that I should be reading, I will take them.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you know, the thing is, when I first started writing about movies, it's like Roger Ebert, Leonard Maltin. Those were a couple of the big critics that I really paid attention to. You know, and some of the people that you just talked about. I mean, there are people that I follow on Twitter. I'm sort of like with you. It's like I'm not necessarily going to read a review before I see the movie and am able to formulate my own opinion of it. Then I'll see what other people think about it. The exception to that is if it's maybe a movie that I'm probably on the fence about seeing, and it's like, I'm not quite sure if I want to see it. Let me see what other people are saying about it. But I mean, for the most part, I'm also somebody who I definitely read. I'm very much like you. It's like there are a lot of novels and stuff like in books I want to read that doesn't necessarily, but I don't necessarily have the patience to read. So, not anymore.
And I feel sometimes like people give me shit for it. Like, reading is so great. I'm like, yeah, but so is a movie. And like, I love movies so much, and I get that not every book can be able to be a movie, and I guess that you can do more with creating a movie, you know, creating the world in your own mind when you're reading a book. But I'm like, I'm gonna trust that to the visionary director. And it's just, you know, it's what I like. And honestly, when it comes to like time, there's no way. I mean, if I can meet somebody who's got this great balance of like watching TV, watching movies, and reading books and listening to music, like, yo, congratulations. Because as many movies as I watched, like before COVID shut the world down, I was at the movie theater 3 to 5 times a week. Plus I'm a husband and I'm a father. So like you know, and not to mention, addiction. I don't want to say addiction. It's a good addiction. I listen to, you know, about 8 to 10 hours of podcasts daily. So I would not be able to find the right time personally to incorporate that too. And I like the way my life is right now. So,
oh no, I mean, even before COVID, it's like it was one of those things where it's like, it just was, there's so much, like, I'm not necessarily going to the theater 3 to 5 times a week, but I'm watching things constantly. And you know, sometimes most of the time it's for review. Like there's very little opportunity for me to watch a movie just for the sake of watching it, or watching a TV show just for the sake of watching it. It's like, there are very few TV shows I get into anymore, and it's because of the fact that I just don't have the commitment to it, the time or the commitment to it.
I mean,
so much.
Let me ask you this question, because it's something I've been thinking about. As film critics, when you watch something for leisure, do you feel like you have a responsibility to tell people what you watched and what you thought about it? Like, there's not much that I watch now where I'm like, man, I'm just not going to talk about it. Like, or like I'll have every intention of like, you know, of saying something on Twitter or on Insta or whatever, and I just don't get around to it, but that's different. But like, there's not really much of an occasion where I feel like if I watch something, I feel like I I have a responsibility to tell people what I thought of it.
Especially if it's something that I've been interested in writing about for a while, I will like write a review on it.
Hmm.
But if it's something that already I've reviewed before, I've watched several times before, unless there's something distinct about that I see in that experience that crosses my mind. Yeah, I mean, there's not really, especially if it's a movie that I've seen before. I don't really, I won't necessarily say anything about. Just be, if I'm watching it with my wife or watching it with friends, yeah, that's one thing I might post about it. I might say, hey, I'm watching so and so, just to let people know what I'm doing. But unless there's something like even new movies, like I just caught up with The Hunt a couple of days ago,
Okay.
and it's like, now normally if I'd seen that when it first came out, I would have probably written about it, but
Yeah.
ultimately but honestly watching it, I'm like, there's not really a whole lot for me to say about this movie that I want to say. Like, so I tweeted about it. I said, hey, I finally saw The Hunt. Here's what I thought about it, but that's basically all I'll write about it.
You know what? And like you kind of touched the two things, right? Which I think is pretty interesting. It's like if you don't have a particular like vested interest in something after you watched it, you're just like kind of indifferent on it,
Yeah,
then I don't think it's like a responsibility, right?
right.
But also, I think timing is really precious too, right? Like
Mm,
the conversation for The Hunt, and I feel this, as a writer, as a film critic, and as a film podcaster, it's like, yo, I have a timeline of when I feel like this content is essential,
yeah.
and if I feel like it's past that, it lessens my intentionality to
Mm,
get it out,
yeah.
right? So like, for example, like with The Hunt, that was the last week before we went into total shutdown.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there was a little bit longer leash to kind of enter that into conversation, because honestly, if you tweet that now, your kind of attach rate to a response, unless it's something that folks, I will say The Hunt was a bit divisive. I didn't care for it much at all.
Yeah.
So at that time, so like it was definitely one of those things where the timing of it can play into like how people are going to interact with that. But I think it's a really interesting question that I will pose later on Twitter. Thank you very much for the
You are welcome.
for the inspiration.
But and the thing is, if I had seen it, and you're right about that, because if I had seen it that weekend, or if I had seen it like when Universal made it available on video on demand, I would have been more inclined to write about it, maybe. But even then, I mean, it's not necessarily a guarantee, because it's like, do I really have enough to say to add to this conversation? Also,
Mm.
now I
Mm.
will say, like when I caught up with Invisible Man last month, that was like, you know what? I do have things I want to say about this movie, and so it's like, yeah, I will approach that one and write a review of that one. It timing plays a part in it, but also the work itself. Like, if the work inspires the writing about it, then I mean that's ultimately the most important part, I think.
No, I think you're spot on with that, man.
So, having worked on the creative side of things when it comes to movies, is there something from that experience that you try to bring into your looking at films from a critical standpoint?
Absolutely. While I don't believe that you need a degree in the same way you don't need a degree to be a filmmaker, you don't need a degree to critique film.
Yeah.
I think it's great in understanding all of the components and elements to what goes into filmmaking, to not only have a true respect of it, but to be able to analyze and be a critique of it
Mm-hmm.
in a fair way too, right? One, as a defender of all films, which I believe if you want to be a critic, like you should be able to you should be able to like love movies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's funny, in college I recognize that there are people who critique certain like subjects of like life, but like they don't like for example, like, I went to a little Bible college. I don't want to say little; it's pretty damn big now. But I went to a little Bible college, Southeast University, in Central Florida, right? And I like, there's theologians, folks who study religion, and then there's academic theologians who these are people who don't believe in religion, but they study it.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that to be amazing. Like, I can't imagine, like, in a film space that someone can be a film critic but not believe into, like, the art of film, or like have a passion for it, like,
Yeah.
right. So in that same respect, I'm like, I want to be able to approach the way that I critique films from not only the love of me being in the audience, but understanding everything that goes into it.
Mm-hmm.
So growing up with a theater background, and first and foremost, I am an actor. I'm still a working actor. I think I'm a damn good one. So what appeals to me are it's going to be a performance inside of a film. And because I've been trained, I'm able to pick up on certain things, like, how the way an actor is acting with their body, how the way is acting by reacting to another, performer that they're, playing alongside with, the things that they're doing with their affectations and stuff. Because I've been trained in that way, I feel like that my critical eye is going to, maybe a little bit, deeper than someone else's, where someone like my best friend who, we both went, study film program, this film program at the school, his critical eye is more so in like the directing landscape. So he completely understands like the components of, putting together how it looks on film, the cinematography aspects, like different, camera, techniques and stuff like that, where my lens is not as acute to that.
Yeah.
So being able to actively work in front of the camera as well as behind the camera, from a producer standpoint with writing, I can understand how the movie that you had designed on the page may not have translated on the screen. It's my job as a critic, without knowing the goal of the director, and not only the success of how it makes it on screen, but also understanding what could have happened that would have made it to this. And that may allow me to kind of discount my overall reception, my overall, interpretation of it. And I think that that's fair, because I make sure to disclose that when I'm talking about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very different where I said, oh, it wasn't that bad. Well, I want to go into why that wasn't that bad. Like, right now, I'm working on this DCEU rewatch. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of people that, fair or unfair, have a perception of Zack Snyder and his films, and they've already made up in their mind that they're not going to like them, right? Mm-hmm. Justice League is garbage. No, most films aren't garbage. That doesn't mean that there's not a lot of garbage films. There are. But I can understand, like, oh, this makes sense, as to why he made this decision. And I can understand why it may or may not have translated onto the screen. Mm-hmm. So I think my background in filmmaking aids me in being a pretty dope critic. But it's not something that's required. I wouldn't want people to think that. No, it's a nice little bit of flavor too. I'll say it.
No, I mean, I definitely agree with that, and I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, if you look at it's funny because if you look at the French New Wave, it's like they were critics of film before they started making films, and so it's one of those, and so yeah, I think it is interesting, like. Even though you are right, you don't need to have experience making a film, I think, to critique a film. I do think it does help, or it gives a different aspect to, especially if you can talk about your personal experiences in terms of like what your experiences are as far as making movies or making TV or what have you, and sort of bring that into the conversation when you're talking about films. Because I mean, my first love was movies or music, and I love film soundtracks, and I've composed music. I've done a couple film scores, and that experience is so. Film music is something that really interests me in a movie, whether it's used or not used, how it's used and not used, and so it's one of those things where it's like, in a lot of cases, especially if it's something that really stands out, and to sort of tie into what you were saying as far as your DCEU rewatch, like, I love, like, first of all, I will say, I told you this in private, where it's like, I listened to your pod on Man of Steel, and I very much agree with everything you said, because one of the things I loved about Man of Steel was the fact that it was essentially a science fiction film, and it essentially was the day the Earth stood still with Superman.
Yeah,
And I
very
really
much so.
love that aspect of
Yeah.
it, because of the fact that it treated Superman as an alien, and you're absolutely right. He's usually treated very much like an American, as opposed to this alien thing that would really scare people. But
Yeah.
my point in going there was because of the fact that one of my favorite scores the past couple of years was actually the score for Aquaman by Rupert Gregson Williams. And
Mm.
it's like I just love listening to that, and it reminds me of I love. First of all, I've done predominantly electronic music, so using synthesizers and stuff like that. That's what interests me about that.
Yeah.
And then just the way he builds themes in it, the way he builds atmosphere, the way he uses moods and motifs and stuff like that is just really engaging in this big, goofy sci-fi universe.
Yeah. And I
Rather
think it's
than
great the way that you just explained that in kind of relation to your question. I think that having that background, what we can also do while we're critiquing a film is that we are teaching whatever audience we have, right? Regardless of our listenership, regardless of our readership, just the way that you broke down in talking about the music. Because in my opinion, when you mentioned the music, well, you did say score. In my mind, just instantly, I went to the music of Aquaman, which I didn't love, but it wasn't the score that was a problem. It was the soundtrack and the way that it was implemented, like that Pitbull,
Oh,
Africa
yes,
song,
yes.
and I'm like, oh, it instantly brings me back to when Aquaman and Mira are coming out the water,
Yeah.
and I was like, fuck.
Oh,
but like,
don't get me wrong.
you're
Yeah.
able to teach your audience that the differences between score and soundtrack and overall music and stuff like that. So but imagine if you didn't have that background, you may not have been able to explain it that way, right?
And yeah, that Pitbull cover of Africa is atrocious. It's so bad. Like, yeah, that
And
is
just where
the
it was
one
placed and
thing
everything
I
too. I'm just
hate
like,
about
oh
that.
god.
But no, but the thing is, it's what's interesting is that yes, obviously distinguishing soundtrack and score, but also recognizing the impact of using songs. Like, part of the reason that Pitbull song is so bad in that movie is that it's a ridiculous cover. It really is stupid,
really
but
is.
also doesn't really serve an emotional purpose whatsoever to the
No.
movie.
Yeah.
But if you look at something like the cover of Over the Rainbow in Face Off, in that particular moment in Face Off, you can see exactly what John Woo is doing with that piece of music in that moment. Or and then she kissed me during the Copacabana scene in Goodfellas, where it's like you understand what Scorsese is doing with that song in that moment. And that is another reason why, musical choices can sink or swim or make a movie sink or can make it swim. And
Oh yeah.
yeah, that's and so it's interesting to see why certain choices. Now, some choices are made for purely, you know, oh, we need something good for the soundtrack to be able to sell the soundtrack. But other things are like, okay, so this is going to be here's why this song is important for this moment.
Yeah.
Who are some of the filmmakers that you find you appreciate most?
Oh man, I use films as an escape, so I love being able to go just to different worlds. Because obviously, if we look outside of what the world looks like right now, it's tough, and we would also want to escape from that. I mean, don't get me wrong, I love being able to tackle the way how auteurs will want to discuss what society looks like today. I mean, that's the point of art, right? Holding up a reflection of what's going on in the outside world. But I mean, if you can take me away to a place, I mean, I'm all the way that. I know, from an early age, sci-fi is like one of my favorite genres, right?
Mhm.
And I would say that one of my favorite sci-fi films is Luc Besson's The Fifth Element.
Yeah.
It's fun. It's big action.
Mhm.
It's got characters that you remember. It's got really great performances. I mean, what Mila Jovovich does as Lilu Dallas, like,
Yeah.
and like one, as a little boy at that age, like granted, I was 11 years old, but like,
Yeah.
let's just say she's a well put together woman, and she's got this bright orange hair, and she's full of life, and just like how colorful all these characters were. One, like I mentioned, how I discovered films. I watched something and I got on something else. Big Chris Tucker, to be able to see what he did as Ruby Rod, like this shock interspace, DJ, and just like I loved it. I would probably play his entrance. It's one of the greatest, entrances into any movie, period. When he gets introduced, on the cruise to Fhloston Paradise. So like I love being able to go to these worlds. Crazy. I didn't grow up a Star Wars fan. I was a Star Trek kid. So like my dad was watching Next Generation all the time. John Luke, that's my captain. James Avery from Deep Space Nine, that's my guy. Like he named my brother off of that character and stuff like that. So like that's what I grew up with. But just being able to understand those different worlds. So any director that's got a big mind, a big imagination, I don't care if they pull it off or not. I'll give like just a shout out for like even going for it. So like obviously Nolan, and I've got a lot of respect for a lot of a lot of other interesting folks, like seeing what what people can be able to do in the horror space, like what James Wan is doing, or like honestly, there's so many. I'm a fan of just like big worlds. So like any director that can take me someplace and bring me someplace new, I'm with it. Even that really wait, did he do that too? Luc Besson did Valerian, didn't he?
Yes.
Oh yeah. But you know what? I love what Valerian was going for. So yeah, no, I'm a big Luc Besson fan because I like the way how his mind thinks. Bringing me into the world of like what the Wachowskis did with the Matrix, right? Like I am all the way with that.
Yeah. So we're obviously like we've been in this new world. We talked about COVID-19 and when everything shut down. When we were talking about The Hunt earlier, we're now coming to the point where things are starting to open back up and movie theaters are starting to open back up. I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on what do you think? Why do you think that's? How long do you think it will take for you to want to be able to go back into a movie theater at this point?
All right. Well, controversial opinion. I'll be there opening day. I would agree that I'm in the minority. I'm not one of those that believe that this is a hoax. This is fake. It's not. This is very real. People have been directly and indirectly impacted by this worldwide pandemic, and it's really tough. But a lot of folks have had to move on. I live in a red state. I'm in Atlanta, Georgia. They don't care what the orders are. They're opening back up and have been doing so for weeks. I am thankful and gracious that I have not been directly impacted. I've also been responsible in trying to do everything that I can to not directly impact others. I think when I say to people that I'm making the decision that when my AMC opens back up, and granted, keep in mind, guys, for context, I was at the movie theater 3 to 5 times a week. Having that gone away for 3 months has been rough. I don't enjoy watching movies at home as much as I do in the theater. Like, and that's my right to. Like, I go to the theaters for an experience. I can't get that experience at home. So when AMC and Regal, and let's take my AMC because I love my AMC, I believe that company and its employees are going to do everything in their power to create a safe space for moviegoers, right? And obviously that comes with caveats. In the same way that we have a lot of other industries and businesses creating a safer way to be able to patronize a restaurant, a safer way to be able to shop at a grocery store, a safer way to be able to do all the regular things that we want to do, but because of COVID, we'd had to adjust. I think this is going to be the same thing. I do not want to see the movie theater industry go away because of an unprecedented, impact to them economically due to COVID-19, right? So when they open up, I know that they're going to have less than 50% capacity, probably somewhere around that 30% number. The good thing is where my local theater is, and this is a personal choice for everybody, and I'll explain that personal choice. There was no more than 10 to 15 people in my theater anyway when I go to one. I will not be there, during peak hours, like on a Thursday, Friday, or Saturday night. So, like, I'm going to remove that. But other times, one, I get my tickets well enough in advance. I can get an idea of where I'm going to be seated. I know that the tickets that'll be available will be social distance themselves, probably two seats in between each other at the very minimum. I'll be gloved up. I'll be masked up. I carry my own hand sanitizer and personal disinfectant wipes with me everywhere that I go, right? I'm still debating whether I'm going to do food. But then again, to be honest with you, let's not pretend like people aren't ordering out and getting food anyway. So
yeah, exactly.
I don't like to have that come into the argument. But the counter argument that I get, well, Kobe, it's a personal choice for you.
Yeah.
But it's not about if you get it, it's if you give it to someone. Let me tell everybody this, right? I myself can only speak for myself. In the past 3 months, I've been very wary of how close I am to someone. I think that we've learned a lot about this virus, especially recently. And I'm not saying that we blew it out of proportion in the beginning, but I remember in late March hearing, hey, if somebody touches something and they got COVID, you're going to die.
Yeah.
Or not exactly to that extent, but that's what the sentiment was. It lives on these, on these surfaces for, 24, 48 hours, right? Where you don't want to touch anything. I think that we've learned that's not really the case.
Yeah.
Really, if you're in someone's personal space, like if you were nose to nose to someone who has it, you about to get it. It has to be able to affect your respiratory system. In the past 3 months, I've done very well, even with doing my regular routine and errands where I have not touched anyone outside of my immediate family. And I'm pretty proud of that, right? Yeah. So I'm going to be responsible in the same way I want folks to be responsible. And I'm going to be at the movie theater. I know that there's not going to be a lot to choose from. You're not going to have 10 brand new films that are going to be waiting for us in the middle of July. Yep. You're going to have a lot of oldies. But, hey, there's some of those oldies I've never seen. I don't want to pass up on the opportunity. Yeah. I tweeted this out yesterday. I've never seen in full, from start to finish, Empire Strikes Back. I love it to be on the big screen for my first time.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and well, first of all, we've talked about this on Twitter because I think we talked about this on Twitter a few months ago. But I worked for Regal, so But trust me, I respect your preference to AMC. I get it.
Wait, hold on, wait. You're here in Atlanta, right?
I'm in Kennesaw.
Kennesaw, yeah, that's right. Okay, cool.
Yeah. So, I completely know how we're handling it, quote unquote,
quote unquote,
here in Georgia, and no, it's one of those things where it's like I'm somebody who it's like I don't know that I'll necessarily go to a lot of movies to start out. Yeah, I mean, granted, I'll be at the movie theater anyway because I work there. But the fact of the matter is, it's like I'm still, I'm like you. It's like I've been very conscious and, making sure I'm keeping safe distance between people whenever I do go out. I limit the interactions when I do go out. I don't go out as much as I used to. And you know what? When I go back to work, that's still kind of going to be the case. It's like, unless there's a reason for me to go out, I'm not necessarily going to go out. And
you know what? That's a good thing because, like, the fact that you are an employee, right? Those folks who are like, you shouldn't go to the movie theater. Like, you don't have a choice. You work there.
Yeah.
So, like, what does that do? Like, no matter what, you still have a responsibility, not only to you and your family, but like to be safe. Yeah. So it'd be very different if it's a matter of should movie theaters open or not. Because they are, then I feel like, okay, we no longer need to entertain that. It's not like should they be open or not. They are. Those same people that are going to have to work there, they don't have the luxury of saying, well, I don't feel comfortable or not. Like, no, they have to go. Right. Just like all of these other businesses have to be open, these essential businesses. And we are in, these phases. Would I love us to have a vaccine, like, immediately? I wouldn't take it immediately, I'll tell you that. Like, I wait for, like, whatever. I wait for it to, like, kind of do its thing a little bit for a little while. But, like, we're going to be 1 to 2 years out for a vaccine and don't really know how this behaves. all we can do. I mean, hey, I'm a believer. I'm a Christian man, so I'm be prayed up. I'm be gloved up and be safe. But like, yeah, you're in an interesting spot. The fact that no matter what anybody thinks about it,
Yeah.
I got to make sure that I'm doing my job as an employee of this theater.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, and that's the thing. It's like, and I know for us, like, we're not going to be selling everything that we normally did. I think we're probably just gonna have like popcorn, drinks, and candy. I think to start out. So
I think AMC is not their dine-in theaters aren't going to be like, they're going to try to open that up in phases, but like not to start out with.
Oh yeah, and I think Regal is the exact same way. And I think it's, and obviously there are going to be social distancing seating. It's like you'll be able to order your tickets. Obviously, you can do that online anyway. You can do, and I think Regal is going to try to make it to where you can order contactless payment, where it's like you can pay through the app for your concessions.
Yeah.
In addition, so I'm curious to see what that's going to look like when I go back. But I think we're also we're not gonna have a full day of shows. Like, we're not gonna necessarily have the later shows. And I'm sort of like, and it's funny because my theater, the theater I work at, is the same with your theater, where it's like, 10 to 15 people in a theater. That's a busy busy show.
Because that's how where theaters make their money. They make their money on Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
Exactly.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So like, and Sunday it's really, like it slows back down in the evening time. So it's very different. And I think that people who may not understand like how like economics work in that, like that is where it's going to be tough. I know that they have to open, and if they didn't open, I know for Regal and AMC, they've got money that they owe to these creditors, and they got to pay that regardless. Yeah. So they needed to open up now. I'm glad that they're going to have Mulan as an interesting test case, and then Tenet as an interesting test case. Personally, for films, I mean, I'm not looking forward to Mulan for different reasons. I just haven't been impressed by the trailers. And it's one. I guess I'll go into a little bit more. It's not your typical Disney family-friendly film. It's not. It does not have, and I'm sorry, like, we're in this space. It does not have a recognizable American lead in it. At least for Aladdin, you be able to sell this Aladdin remake with Will Smith.
Yeah.
You cannot do that with Mulan. So there was already going to be a risk that there's no bankable star in this film. It's completely set, in I don't want to say, is it not feudal, right? No. Is it feudal? Whatever. It's not set in America. And like, and as much like that's harsh. That's how theater goers respond. So only thing they're going to go off of is that it's Mulan and then that Disney label.
Yeah.
The fact that knowing that the film is one of the most expensive films ever for Disney, right? Like, it costs like almost like $300 million.
Yeah, something like that.
The bar to set just for it to be even the discussion of being successful, traditionally, if there was no COVID, was you better open up to $100 million opening weekend.
Yeah.
It's not going to sniff $100 million.
No.
Numbers wise, it can't, because now average, you'll get 4 to 5 showings in a theater.
Right.
Disney is going to do everything in their power to try to get 75% of it. To say, hey, you know what? Give us 75% of your screens. No, are you kidding me? But now there's really not much competition. Even if they get 75% of their screens, let's say a 10 screen average at a theater, all right. I mean, if you want to do the whole 4 to 5 showings, great. That's at 30% capacity. There are not enough people coming to get to $100 million.
No, not even.
And if you're telling me that once we open up, you're not going to have another film the week after, but 2 weeks later you're going to have Tenet.
Yeah.
Which I still have my berries about Tenet. I don't think the numbers make sense for it. I'm fine with waiting on Tenet because I wanted to do well, right?
Yeah.
If it's stuck with that 7, was it 7/17, right? That date or whatever. The fact that it says it wanted to be the first to open up, all right, cool. But now if you're not going to be the first, move back, because I don't think that you're going to make the money. So we'll see. I don't know.
No, it's definitely going to be interesting to see, but it's like at the same time, like with Mulan, where you're absolutely right. The numbers are not going to add up at all. Even if you're lucky enough to get a percentage of the worldwide that you would normally get, which you're not going to get because they're going through the same issues we are. At the same time, the whole question of, oh, we'll just cut our losses, put on Disney Plus. You can't do that with Mulan.
No.
Like, you have to at least try to get some money out of it. And the thing is, it's like, because of the fact that I know we're only opening up like 8 auditoriums to start out. So it's like, yeah, you're going to be, but I mean, honestly, I'm kind of glad for that, because that means we don't have to worry about 16 auditoriums. I mean, we'll have that extra time to clean those other 16 auditoriums. And maybe the way it'll work is like, these 8 work one day, these 8 are the next day, and so on and so forth.
I think that, you know what? I never thought about it like that. I think that makes a lot of sense. I believe there's 16 auditoriums at my AMC in Parkway Point in Cumberland. Like, that's my AMC, you know? So yeah, it doesn't make sense to have this entirely open, you know, shift it around so that way you can, like, you know, even, I'm not too sure how they're going to be doing like the deep cleaning process, but like, you know, don't try to put too much on your workers. I mean, one, they've been unemployed. They've been unemployed completely, you know, for some of them for, you know, 2.5 months, you know? So, you know, it's great to kind of open things up gradually. I think that, man, I never thought about that. That makes a lot of sense to like kind of rotate between especially when I worked in a movie theater back in college, when I was running film through projectors, now everything's digital. So that shouldn't be an issue.
But I've had that experience as a projectionist too. So it's like, 16 theaters that's a lot to, doing all of those in like an hour. It's like, oh yeah, I've got to get that thread up. I've got to go through that. I love projection. I adored projection. It's like a part of me died when we went all digital, because of the fact
the projectionist was like the coolest job in the theater. It's like, I'm not a projectionist.
It was something I had wanted to do, and then when I became a manager, I finally had the opportunity to do it, and it's like, I love this. And it's like, and part of it was because I didn't have to deal with the customers, but but now everything's digital. It's like, okay, I'll just go into software. I'll do this. I'm done. Okay,
that's it.
This is not as exciting.
I mean, the only thing that, in my opinion, I think unfortunately Mulan is not going to be a financial success. I mean, unless they're looking at like the complete optimal, like, hey, listen, you know, we already knew that we were going to be, you know, receiving a lot of losses because they did so much heavy marketing for Mulan. So I mean, that's a completely sunk cost. That's not doing anything for you right now. You've spent, you know, let's say $50 million in that marketing back in March, and that goes nowhere. Now you're gonna have to rev it all the way back up, and I'm imagining that at the end of this week, because usually at that point, you know, we'll be 2 weeks out. That's when you're gonna start seeing more and more of the ad marketing for Mulan back. Now that's more money spent, and then still to be in a market where you're not going to be able to make it. Like, in order for this movie to make money, like, they want this to be $1 billion franchise. There's no reason why it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be, like, in the same way that Aladdin was, you know, close to $1 billion. The same thing with, you know, Lion King. That's what they expected of Mulan, if not even more, because of the international appeal. And they're not going to get that, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, absolutely. So while during the past few months, without movies in the theaters, what have you been watching in the meantime?
Yeah, I mean, even though I prefer my theatrical experience and it has been challenging to get in the mood to watch a movie while at home, I've been watching a lot of series. And some of the big movies that have happened, I mean, Netflix, they definitely were available at the right time during this pandemic to take up as much of the market share that they already didn't have, right? So Netflix has been great. And I'm glad that they had enough stuff in the can that they've been able to like put out. I've been really impressed with how they've used 2019, I think, was one of the best years for Netflix in regards to cultivating an atmosphere like a movie theater. Like, because before, for a lot of years, you just never knew what was on Netflix. You just knew that there was stuff there, but like, you never knew how to find something or to even have anticipation to look forward to something. They're still working on that. Like, you generally don't know when something's coming out till 2 weeks before. And, you know, and then honestly, you really don't know until it says it's now available. As where with movies, think about all the movies, we generally have a sense of knowing when it's coming out. Like we may not know the exact date, but I know, hey, I know at the beginning of May, we had Black Widow to look forward to. I knew that, around 4th of July, we had Wonder Woman to look forward to, and so on and so forth. Where with Netflix, you really didn't have that. Since COVID, they've been making sure that, hey, this is what's coming to Netflix on especially their own platform and then all the other social platforms. So, Extraction, enjoyed. That was a big Netflix one. Obviously, most recently, The Five Bloods. Absolutely loved that film. One of Spike Lee's very best, and it's eerie how timely it was. Like you would think that they just literally got out of they just got out of production. It was like, hey, we got this as a response to like what's going on right now. But I mean, that says a lot in itself. So I mean, a lot of the big Netflix stuff I watched, unfortunately, very, very little of the PVOD stuff, which I kind of feel bad about because this is stuff that not 100% was going to go into theater, but I'd say a bulk of them were going to go to like some type of indie theater or get like a 1 to 2 week run at an AMC or at a Regal. And I built my anticipation for those titles for that. And honestly, and this may sound kind of whack, I do not value that $20 perch, that $20 rental.
Yeah.
And it's making me not want to watch it because like for the past 2 years, now granted, I've got the benefit, I have my best friend, he's a GM at an AMC, so I watch a lot of stuff on his dime, but I still am an A-list member. Yeah. That $22 gets me 3 films a week. And I was going to make these films and I'm about to supposedly pay $20 for that. So I don't want to do it. In my mind, and I haven't really reasoned it yet, I'm like, somehow, some way, I'm probably going to watch it in the movie theater. Or because I've already delayed at this point, I'll just wait till it's like the regular rental price of $3 to $5, or if it goes to Redbox, And I'm pretty sure that there's a lot of other Americans that are like me. PVOD sounds great, but it's not like the only option. And because I'm not pressed for time or anything like that, I'll get around to it when it's a bit more affordable.
Yeah. No, and that was the exact same thing with me, where it's like I just couldn't justify that $20 rental for as much as I was looking forward to Invisible Man. I couldn't justify spending $20 just to lose access to it after 2 to 3 days.
48 hours. Like, that's a lot. Or like we all know that in 3 months, and I think it's even been shorter for a lot of for some titles, it's going to be available to purchase at Target or Walmart for probably less than $20 or max $25.
Yeah.
Like the way that Scoob did theirs, where it's like, hey, it's available to rent or to purchase for $25. Yeah. Great. I'll buy it for $25. Because for a lot of the stuff that I like, I'm going to end up buying it in the future anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, I will say, because I have a daughter, I did the PVOD for Trolls 2 and for Scoob. And I fucked up because I accidentally purchased it twice for Trolls 2. Oh my God, it was a whole mess. So I got $40 out of that. But like, that's only because like for that family appeal. But like, I really want to see Buffalo with Zoe Deutsch. I really wanted to see The King of Staten Island that just came out, right? I really wanted to see The High Note. I really wanted to be able to see oh my God, what was the other one? Swallow, right? Yeah. I just cannot justify that $12 to $20 for that one, title, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And a part of me feels bad, like, damn, why am I not supporting? Well, technically, if this COVID wasn't a thing, I wouldn't have been supporting in that way anyway. You know, like it's, like I watched 143 movies at the movie theater last year. It's going to be hard for me to try to dole out money for an experience that's not at the movie theater, and that's me.
Yeah. Oh no, and I completely get it. I mean, it's like we ended up buying Invisible Man, and it's like when it came out on Blu-ray, so it's like, okay, so have that.
And this doesn't seem different than what my buying would have been before.
Basically same price, and it's like, guess what? I own it now. But yeah, I mean, just wait, because I've still got Netflix DVD. So like that's how I watched The Hunt. That's how I watched The Way Back. It's like, now I think Warner Brothers, they did make it to where you could just buy it outright digitally. Okay. But at the same time, it's like, I'm not quite sure if I really want to spend that much money. And it's like, but yeah, the rentals, it's like, I'm sorry, I can't do that. Now, the thing is, it's like, I do see that being especially if studios don't necessarily think that it's going to be a big monster hit like the Pixar movies or anything like that. I can see them doing the video on demand rentals like that in the future for a lot of family movies. Because I mean, Paramount just announced that for the next SpongeBob.
Yep, they're gonna do that for PVOD. The thing is that okay, with that PVOD model, can there be money to be made? Yes, because essentially, if you are making 80%, off of that title and giving the 20% to whatever outlet that you're gonna have it on, the Vudu, the Fandango, whatever, right? So I get that, right? Like the numbers wise, you can make money. I saw all those different reports of Trolls. I would hate to use Trolls' performance and some of these other ones as like, oh, this shows that it works. No. This shows that it works in a global pandemic where there are no other alternatives. Like, not only are there other there's not other movies as competition, the theater itself is not in competition, right? So like that, I think personally that would be foolish for these studios to think like, let's do it. I think it's fine like to give it a try. I'm not down for the whole we're going to release it in the theater and at home for the same, at the same time. That doesn't make sense to me. I mean, ultimately, I know what I've been taught in school when I took my, my film economics class. You make a movie for $100 million. You probably put, let's say, we'll round up and put like, 25, round down, $25 million in marketing. In order to be in the black, you need to make $125 million back.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's a window that you would have, let's say, traditionally 90 days at the theater, and you're only getting half of those, of the box office, right? For most studios, it's a little bit more than half, but whatever, right? And then you have your VOD and rental window, right? And then that way you're getting a bigger percentage, that 80%, possibly even more of that. That's a whole nother revenue stream. And then you have your at-home purchase. That's a whole different revenue stream where you're giving more percentages. That's where you make the money, right? And if you get lucky and you open up in the movie theater into a worldwide box office, like, you've already made back your budget, including marketing, then for a fact you're going to be good. I just don't think the number works out for a lot of these titles to be able to justify that. Because this is the thing. If I'm an actor and this is what I commanded now, I'm not going to command less just because, like no matter what, like these films are still going to cost $100+ million.
Yeah.
And my thing is, what does that do for the movies, right? That are making like Buffalo, I'm pretty sure costs like $10 million. So why should Buffalo cost $20 the same way that The Way Back costs $20?
Yeah.
Like that's the thing where like if you're gonna go that route, you're gonna have to start pricing individual movies differently. Where at the movie theater, the movies aren't priced differently. No. This is your general admission to any movie you want. And I think once you start getting into that area where you have to price your movie differently when everybody can see it, that's where it's going to get like really, really tough.
Yeah.
Because now as a performer, I'm saying, hey, regardless of like what my salary is, I now have to worry about whether or not like what it's going to be priced at. Because the movie theater is going to say, hey, listen, unfortunately, based on this project that we're working on and stuff like that, we don't think it's going – like we're going to have this movie for $12, right? Like Promising Young Woman. I cannot wait to watch Promising Young Woman, right? It probably wouldn't have made a lot of money in the theater.
Yeah.
But I also couldn't see it like being listed for $20.
No.
Because like it doesn't have like that 4-quadrant appeal to it, right? It's for like very sex. So it's like, if I'm Carey Mulligan, am I just supposed to be like, yeah, so I'm going to sign on for this for like, like 30% less? Like, no, that's not how it's done. So I feel like there's so many things that we have to really look at it. I think it would be foolish to say this is going to be the way it goes. And anybody who thinks that this is going to be the way it goes, think again. There's going to be a lot of things that are taken. The 2 weeks that we're going to have in July, where essentially theaters open up, that's going to say a lot about what happens going forward. Because you have a lot of films that were pushed out by a year. Yeah. Some of those may try to find a spot where they can come back in the fall, especially if they're seen. And I think that's going to be really interesting. We don't have a release date for Dune yet. I've got no idea. Is it going to go into 2021?
Yeah.
Is it going to come in 2020? Who knows?
Yeah, exactly. Let's see. Trying to think of, but first, before we wrap things up, where can people find you?
Yeah, man. Yeah, I am a little bit of everywhere. You can find me on all my socials at Kobe Told Me on Twitter and Instagram. I'm on Facebook if you're still into that at Kobe Mac. When I'm in the mood to write, you can check out my website, KobeToldMe.com, and listen to me on every major podcast platform, the Kobe Told Me podcast. It's my whenever I want to just deep dive with myself, talking about whatever I want, whenever I want. So that way, when they ask you where you heard it from, you can tell them Kobe told me.
That's awesome. Well, thank you very much for joining me. It's good to finally talk to you.
Absolutely, brother. And now knowing that you're just like, I want to say, you're just up the road. You're like 15, 20 miles up the road in Kennesaw. When things are safer, I'd love to catch a movie with you, brother.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. I mean, I know we talked about that with Kevin, who's in town.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
I'd like to thank Colby for joining me today on the podcast. It was really fun to talk to him about movies, learn about where he's coming from when it comes to movies, and sort of what he and I think as far as what's going to happen heading into this next chapter as movie theaters start to open back up is going to be interesting. And I think he's got some excellent points there. And I think it's one of those things that's definitely going to be interesting to look at. That's it for this episode of the Sonic Cinema Podcast. Thank you very much for joining me. You can check this out on the Sonic Cinema Podcast YouTube channel, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, as well as Spotify. Coming up, I've got some more deep dive discussions about some older movies coming up with some friends. And that's it for me for now. Thank you to patrons at patreon.com/SonicCinema. Thank you to everybody who reads sonic-cinema.com. And for everybody, for Brian, for myself, thank you very much for listening. Have a good rest of your day.